Well, hello.
Hello again.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Oh, welcome to We've Got This Maybe, the podcast. I remember we said that last time. We were going to make a real effort to try and say it.
You're too good, I totally forgot.
We're so bad. We've been spending so much time gossiping before we've even pushed record. It's almost like we've done 3 episodes already, but I just feel like we've got so much to chat about. It's like I haven't seen you for ages, but...
Which is ridiculous because we saw each other 2 days ago.
I know. There's just always so much stuff to chat about. And I love this topic that we've sort of thought about today. And we didn't want to sort of dive too deep into it before we sort of did actually push record, because I think this is one of those ones where we will always come at it from our own perspective, but we struggle to understand why those of the other sex don't come at this from the same sort of angle that we do. So we're talking about, getting things off your chest, like having a vent, getting it out there, and then going home and putting it to bed.
Yeah, and I think it's a really difficult one in a way because, like you say, we're observing, so we don't truly know because we're not men. But at the same time, there is, I think, a lot of sort of society kind of expectation, which allows us as women to kind of vent and release and enable certain conversations that isn't really allowed in them for men.
Yeah. I feel like there is a stigma of men sort of when they go out and socialise, it's all sort of like really high level, like fun and games, bantering.
Yeah.
I'm doing this well, you're doing that well, great ha 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 joke here and there. Whereas when we go out as women with our friends, we absolutely have that as well. But all we really want to do is allow people to offload. And it's not gossiping. It's just giving people space to, what's going on? What's bothering you? Like, why are you peed off?
Yeah.
Sort of stuff.
And that's where, it's so interesting because like, I really look forward to you coming over and us doing this because it does give me that space. And this is, again, maybe rant is the wrong word. It's like you're saying offloading.
Yeah.
So whether we are talking about a particular thing that's happened this week or today or whatever, or it's just something in general, it kind of helps you process and think about stuff. I think you and I obviously, come at things sometimes from exactly the same corner and sometimes we don't. And I really like that. And is that something that, guys do? Is that what they help each other with or not? And from our perspective and what we've seen, like sometimes that isn't the case. And, I'm sure Lawrence won't mind me saying, but Lawrence has got a lot smaller sort of friendship kind of circle. His inner circle is like, less than a handful. But I always encourage him to go and see them, go and socialize them, talk to them online, like, things like that, because I think it's so important for them to just chat shit. Just chat about life and I encourage him to like moan about me and things like that. And I'm like, get it out in your system.
Do you, and maybe again, I'm just being like really making a massive assumption here. I feel that when maybe guys are all together, it's like talking about how well they're doing, like how great this has gone, that golf trip they're going on, or that new beer that they've enjoyed to drink.
There's not a vulnerability as much as what I think women would have. So, if you and I were going out for a drink or something, I would like be happy quite quickly to put my heart on the table and just say, I'm really down because of this, or I'm really struggling with this, or, Sophia's done this, I don't know what to do.
And I think with the kids as well, that really helps, because I think it makes everybody feel like they're in the same boat. And I definitely feel like that sort of conversation has evolved over the years. So whereas, like pre-kids, it may have been going and literally just having, an offload or a gossip about a relationship or work or struggling with something, as you say, like having that vulnerability. Whereas now it's, talking about how much my kids don't listen, or the worries or fears I have for them, and actually making me feel like I'm in it with everybody else and I'm not isolated. Whereas, yeah, I feel like guys like isolate themselves by not sharing the pressures that they're facing.
And what's really interesting is that I think that therefore, and it'd be really interesting to see if any of the listeners feel the same, sometimes that turns on us as the partner to help them. So, you know, I mean, Lawrence jokes on how I'm, you know, his wife to be, his emotional coach, his, you know, therapist, his career coach and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, whereas I've got all those people like with all my friendship groups and, you know, I've got certain people that I you know, go to for certain things and things like that. Whereas Lawrence doesn't have that. And is that because he doesn't have the confidence to open up? Or is it that men don't want to be that vulnerable with each other and kind of...
Oh, it's tough. And I don't want to generalise because I know you said quite rightly, we are not men. So it's very difficult for us to comment. But I do think it's more about, you know, wanting to put their best self out there.
Yeah.
You know, an element of like trying to impress, not to look vulnerable, not to like demasculate themselves or to look like they're struggling. Whereas, you know, work environment, home environment, any environment like in society and like just in culture generally, like men are meant to be the ones that are, you know, the providers, the supporters, the protectors.
But this is a really interesting thing. Like you say, they are meant to be. Society is expecting them. Again, is this something about generational expectation that we have to break? You know, we have to allow men to have those spaces to feel safe with us, with their friends, and like let each other like just be, you know, be who we are, to have those conversations. And it's really interesting because I've got a few of my friends who are guys, and some of them take it like they're more than comfortable to open up to me, but they wouldn't open up to their male friends. Whereas some of them are like, here's my entire life, you know, and others are like, no, you know, I'm just going to, like you're saying about like, everything's good, everything's great, this is my life and I'm brilliant. Like, it's a really interesting dynamic where I think there is a shift. So I think people are becoming more willing to talk, you know, in the male arena, which again, we're being very like observational here, but I think that there still is a way to go. And how can we help men do this, what we're doing? Like, how can we help them?
Tell me this, and I'm sure, like, I'm guessing like Lawrence is the same. So if he went out with his friends and say, for example, one of his friends was just about to have a baby or had just had a baby, they'd all go out, you know, if Rory went out in that situation, he'd come home and I'd be like, what's the baby called? What are they doing with the baby? What's going on? He's like, I don't know, we didn't even speak about that. Oh, what on earth did you speak about then? This is fundamentally the most important thing going on in this person's life right now. Like, you don't even know if it's a boy or a girl. Like, why do they not talk? Like, like, is it surface level? Like, whereas, you know, I would know everything. I want to know that birth story. Like, the first thing I ask you.
I'm always is like, how was the first trimester? How, you know, what symptoms did you have? You know, I'm totally with you on that. And you know what? I'm, not that I'm trying to put Lawrence on a pedestal, but I know that Lawrence finds certain conversations easier than others. And some he's fantastic at. So some things he will want to know everything, but others he finds very difficult. And one of the things, again, I'm sure he won't mind me talking about this, that we talk about is he has a lack of self-confidence, which he finds challenging. And he talks about himself a lot. So he's not able to, he wouldn't say, oh, Erin, how's your day been? He'll instantly start with how his day's been.
Interesting.
Right? So I've had feedback from certain people around us that people think, God, Lawrence only talks about himself. But I don't know whether that's the men thing where they all talk about how, you know, they want to tell you what they've been doing and how impressive it is and what they've been achieving and la, la, la. Whereas you and I, when we're like, hey, how's it going? I'll be like, oh, Erin.
I feel like all I do is put myself down when I'm talking to my friends or talking to everyone. Like, it's almost like I want everyone to know how bad my life is. Whereas on the flip side, I feel like men, and how I like view it, is want everybody to know how great it is.
Yeah, it's so curious, and it's really, I think this topic is so interesting because I think there's a couple of questions here that I think, you know, for me, is how can we help men feel that they can open up and psychologically, like, create safe spaces for them to be vulnerable, to feel it's okay not to be like at the top of your game every single day. You don't have to be bossing it all over the place. Like, life can be shit. But then at the same time, like, why do we do what we do? Why do we always go in with, you know, like when you've that whole thing about like if you buy a new dress and people have to tell you that they got it on sale. Or it's like, oh, well, I've got, you know, this done or that. It's like, you can't just say thanks.
From Sainsbury's.
Yeah. But you're constantly like, and this again is that whole kind of gender. It's a really interesting thing, but why do we do that? And what makes us automatically have to kind of like defend ourselves that, oh, it's not as good as what you think?
Do you always feel like you are, I don't know, like putting yourself down then, or like not promoting yourself that much?
Yeah, I'm not very good at it.
No, I don't think I'm very good at it either. No. And I don't know why. Is when this may have been in actually one of the really early conversations that we had, is I find it really hard to introduce myself.
Yes, I remember you saying this.
If you said to me, tell me something about yourself, and I'd be like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I find it really hard to say something positive or interesting about me, whereas I find, you know, other people find it really easy to like reel off things about their achievements, their jobs, like their hobbies or something like that, whereas, you know, I would find it really easy to say, oh, this dress was a bargain, this dress was in the sale, or I'm really struggling with this, or I'm finding that hard. Like, that conversation I find really easy, maybe because actually being vulnerable to me is a little bit easy. I don't know. Weird.
No, that's a really interesting statement. So I want to ask you a question, because obviously we've just said about how you find it difficult to promote yourself.
Yeah.
But then you're happy to kind of show the other kind of negative-y sort of style bits as well. If I said to you, Erin, are you proud of yourself? What would instantly come out?
I would say yes, but then I would find it hard to think of something to quantify that answer.
It's really interesting you say this, because that's one of the big things is pride.
Maybe it's, and I'm sort of like doing some therapy on myself here, like maybe I'm sort of in that like negative mindset because I'm seeking somebody to then say something positive to me for my own ego.
And maybe it's a self-worth thing. I think women tend to have more self-worth. I mean, I'm saying this, I know men have it as well, but self-worth is a big thing, I think, for women because of the way that society and gender expectations is all built in. And it's a really interesting context because I'm exactly the same as you. I would more than happily very quickly say, I am proud of who I am Vix, and this is who I am type of thing. But if you ask me, what am I proud of? I'm like, well... I'm really proud of myself though.
Yeah, put me on the spot, and I find it really hard to like find something. Whereas like I know I do really great things all of the time, but maybe I don't see them necessarily as like a big green tick, great achievement. It's just life.
And that's a really interesting, I keep saying we're doing really interesting things. But you're saying about life and about all the stuff that you do, you just do because it's who you are and it's what you do and it's part of like your routine and schedule and all that kind of stuff. Why do we do that? Because it's just accepted, isn't it? Like we all, you know, we balance the finances, the kids, the food, the house. And obviously, you know, there is, you know, we have relationships, we have partners and we all take our roles and what have you. But there's a lot of things that we do as women and that we're expected to do. You know, we're balancing trying to have careers and giving birth and doing maternity leave and coming back from maternity leave and trying to, you know, assimilate ourselves back into the workplace whilst being a mum of 2, whilst being a mum of 3. You know, it's like, it's a really challenging emotional thing to go through. That's amazing.
And a logistical nightmare all at the same time. And you think about it,
exactly.
like, even when you say it like that, I'm thinking, I've got loads of jobs I need to do. But like, tell me this then, like, why do we find it so much easier just to like offload when we've had our like, you know, had a glass of wine or in that setting? You know, there is something about, you know, just dropping the guard down, taking the armor off when you've had the drink. Or something. And I don't want to use drink as the thing because, you know, it's not always about drink, but it's almost giving you that.
Well, a cup of tea, a cup of coffee. Do you know what I mean? It's just having something to kind of have that moment, isn't it? You know, afternoon tea with your mates or spa day with your friends. Like, you know, those circumstances are where you can offload. And I really like that term, actually, offload. I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Because it isn't always a vent, it isn't always a rant, it isn't always sort of, you know, a big moment. It's just, sometimes you just need to offload.
For me, I honestly feel like it's therapy a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's not because I know that I'm always going to get people agreeing with me, because I feel like I like surround myself with enough people where some of them will agree with what I'm saying or my actions, and a lot of them will call me out on it. And actually, I feel like I find the most growth or the most reflection when people call me out and they're a bit like, do you think that was the right thing to do? Or, oh, I think you're a bit like heavy, like, you know, a bit much there, or maybe you should try it this way. And sometimes I'm quite accepting of that, but other times, and we've said before, is I find it really difficult sometimes when people like make judgment on a decision I've made. It's hard.
Yeah. It's how you take feedback, but also how you deliver it. And I think like women maybe are softer. We naturally, I think, because of the maternal instincts that we all possess, I think there is an easier delivery. We're softer with we lean into the soft skills, don't we? We kind of utilize them easier, and we see all sides a lot quicker, maybe. And again, I just feel every time I'm saying something, I feel like I'm assuming for, you know, men versus women. But I do feel that there's a lot we need to do to help men feel safe to be able to offload like we do, and be able to have that kind of catch up over a beer or catch up over the barbecue. Like, I don't know, like there's moments where you can just go, I really don't feel like I'm really struggling with this, or, you know, just even using those words doesn't sound very masculine, you know.
But they say, you know, the stats come out all the time in terms of, you know, the number of like men of a certain age that, you know, like tragically like end their own lives, and like the like mental illness and all things like that, because of the pressure of not being able to ask for help. But maybe women don't need to do that necessarily, because we've got that sort of like shield around us, that safety net of other women that are there to listen, there to sympathise, there to sort of like agree and challenge as well.
Yeah, and I think it's having those friends who you know how you were saying about some feedback is difficult and some isn't. And it's just having the respect of those people around you. So again, I think this isn't a gender issue. This is more just a friendship issue, that, you know, as long as you have respect for each other, you know, I respect you and what you do and the choices you make because they're your choices. And at the end of the day, if I want to challenge you, I have to respect it's your life. So I can go, Erin, like, was that right? Or whatever. But if you have to have the trust in me that you can go, no, Vix, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or, oh yeah, maybe, oh God, maybe you're right. You know, and it's like, Lawrence and I have that, you know, we find it difficult sometimes to take feedback off each other, but then it's trusting each other that I'm not telling him what to do and I'm not, you know, insulting his choices. I'm just purely going, oh, what about this? What about that? And he does the same with me. Like, you know, when I'm like, right, this is the plan. And then he's going, yeah, but how about what if we do this and then we can do that better? And
sometimes I find it harder to take feedback from the people that like you care about the most necessarily, because you're worried about their worried about their judgment. But do you find that it's easier to sort of like, I don't know, how do I put this? Do you find it's easier to sort of have those conversations with people when you like know them really well, or do you feel like sometimes there's like invisible boundaries there? Like, I sometimes feel that my boundaries can be blurred, especially if I've had a glass of wine or I'm in a setting where I feel safe, and maybe, people don't know other people, and then I feel like I can offload without judgment.
I don't know, I guess I've never really thought about it from my perspective. I think because, again, I've had lots of therapy in my life, I'm probably all right in each situation because I've had so many therapists, I've had so many psychologists, psychiatrists. So in my head, like, I mean, dude, I'd tell the guy next to me on the bus about my life because I'm happy to be vulnerable. I'm happy to be I'm not kind of always ashamed of what I do because it's just sometimes it's what I've done. And I've gone through therapy to accept that and embrace that. And it's been a very, 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 very difficult thing to accept and embrace. I'm not saying that everybody can do it, but I'm okay. Don't get me wrong. There's times when I will be, and particularly if I'm, coming back to the fact that, where you and I met, I think in the mums, sort of when we were meeting all the mums at the very beginning, I definitely would not feel I can share there, but now I probably could.
Yeah. And I often, so I was saying that thing about like boundaries is I definitely think that, I need to, and I've definitely said this before as well, like respect maybe the boundaries when I'm, venting or having conversations with people. But I sometimes forget what I say as well. And not because it's not important or it hasn't meant anything, but it's almost like transactional to me. Is I don't really register it. I'm just sort of bleh. I'm just getting it out.
So when you're saying that you like sort of, do you want to say offload or vent? Like, which way are we going?
Well,
both. Everything, everything in the mix.
Everything. I'm just like verbal diarrhea, and it's gone.
So when it happens, like when you're in whichever situation, like, do you feel like it's just Erin? It's just Erin talking, or do you feel that you're purposely doing it in a space where people might not know you as well, so they can't judge you? Or where do you think that's
a bit of both?
Do you think?
A bit of everything, and I feel like it's my own like therapy a little bit, and I'm not doing it necessarily to get feedback or to have somebody think negatively about a situation or a person or a group of people, like whoever it may be. And I know that's very different, because if other people potentially heard me speaking about situations or about them, I know they may be offended, but I don't mean it like that. I just need to sometimes get it off my chest, and I'll still like really like you, but the person I'm potentially gossiping about or bitching about or moaning about or whatever, but I just need to like get it out my head.
But that to me is where I guess, again, that's where, to me, what you've just said is actually quite emotionally intelligent in a way, because what you're doing is that you're wanting to get something off your chest, which may be perceived as negative, but it doesn't come from that place. So there's a lot of validation in how people process their emotions and opinions on things. And a lot of people find it better to talk rather than journal.
And that's exactly it, because Rory called me out on this only like last week. Is he must have said something that annoyed me in my head, and no one else was in the room, and I must have turned around and just like said something. And he was like, "What do you say?" And I was like, "I don't know."
So it was even like, it was like your subconscious like talking rather than you. Yeah.
Just get it out.
Yeah.
I must have.
How interesting.
I think it was like he said something, and I was like, "Please and thank you." But it wasn't almost like calling him out because I didn't really care, but it was like in my head, I thought it and it annoyed me so much. It just came out my mouth and I didn't register what was coming out of my mouth, but I am aware of that. And that's why I said sometimes I think I disrespect the boundaries sometimes when I speak to people about other people. And it's not to be malicious and it's not to be mean and it's not to be any of that, but I just can't help what comes out my mouth.
But then at the same time, if it's not coming from a bad place, you're not wanting to be malicious, you're not trying to be nasty, it's just an observational frustration, irritate, whatever it is, we all get annoyed at each other.
But that's so hard because I've had it before where, you know, somebody may have like heard or has been told
that you said
or I've said something and I'm sort of really trying to reason with them to be like, it really wasn't horrible. I wasn't saying it in a horrible way. I was just saying.
Would you have said it to their face?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I've been asked, but I sometimes struggle with those sort of social cues. I think as well.
And this is what this is the thing. I think kind of navigating friendships and evolving friendships is such a difficult thing because, like again, it's trust. It's that respect and trust piece, and how. You know, why can't you say something? Like, you know, if it doesn't come from a bad place, why can't you like alleviate that sort of build up inside? And how can we all support each other to know that it's okay to say, you really hurt me, Erin, by saying that? And you going, oh, well, you know, it wasn't, I totally didn't mean it in that way. I meant it in this way. And me being able to go, okay.
Yeah. So do you think you would feel, or how would you feel if you'd found out that somebody had said something about you, positive, negative, whatever? And I'm not talking about like anything nasty. I'm not like talking about somebody like going in on you. I'm just like a passing comment or something like that. Like, because we were saying about how, you know, as women, we go in and we have, you know, this offload or this session, and then we go home to our happy lives and we sort of move on and it doesn't like bother us in the same way. Like if you knew that like Lawrence had gone out with his mates and was having a real blah blah about you, how would you feel?
So we're all human and we all have like vulnerabilities. So of course I am sure, and I'm not going to lie, there will be some tinge of like, ooh.
Yeah.
But again, if I value and again, it sounds really like wanky, but you know, if we have respect enough, I will go to him and say, I heard you said this about me, but it's not making it into a thing.
Yeah.
It's about being able to have a chat about it.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting, I don't know if you and the listeners watch Chris and Rosie Ramsey's podcast. Shout out to them. I can't even remember the name of it now.
Chuck Murray boy?
Yeah, that's it. Annoyed or something. Yeah, that's it. Shame on me for not knowing that. They have a thing called What's Your Beef, right?
Oh, yes, you said this, and they say each other.
They basically tell each other something that they've done or that annoys them. So we've actually adopted this in our relationship. And Lawrence and I have beefy Mondays.
I love that. I think
on a Monday, Moss, go away. On a Monday, we are, and again, it's about building trust with each other and able to process frustrations with each other. And it has been so good. It has helped us so much to talk about things like really stupid things like, would you just check the toilet after you've been, please? We all know what we're talking about. I don't need to go further than that. And he goes on about, I've got to try and check myself when I'm getting anxious, because no one in the house is happy when I'm anxious, when I'm irritated. So again, he's like, you need to really focus on like the impact you have on us, and the snapping and stuff, the way you talk to Sophia, the way that you talk to me, so we're able to give those kind of bits of feedback which piss us off, annoy us, irritate us, literally the breadth of it all, but in a space where we go, okay, I will try. One of his big bugbears is my snot rags, as he calls them, is because I'm obsessed with keeping my nose clean, and I have tissues all around the house, and sometimes I put them down when they have been used. And it drives, that's like the worst thing to him. It really triggers him. So again, he was like, okay, Beefy Mondays, you're snot rags. Like, this cannot go on. It's really annoying me. And again, I was like, yeah, but I don't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
And I got heightened about it. He was like, safe space. And I was like, okay. You know, and it's like, it's being humble enough to go, okay, I will listen to you. I know it's not coming from a bad place.
And part of me thinks, and this is how I feel about it, is I'd rather somebody get out their frustrations.
Yes, I agree.
Like, in a way, and then everyone move on and be happy, whether that be down the pub with your friends or us in a coffee shop, us in a spa, us having a glass of wine or whatever. Yeah. I'd rather park it there, get it all out. So actually, like, where the time's really important and it matters, we're not like antsy about it.
But you know what we do as well, though, is that we circle back. So when we've had conversations and stuff, either on this podcast or when we've been at the school gates or we've been, you know, wherever we've been, like, we will circle back to certain conversations that we've had before, again, to kind of go through them, to process them, to revisit them, to kind of, like you say, offload them again, because it's still there. It's still something. And every little bit that you do, every chunk that you kind of address still helps. You know, it's not like we kind of, you know, just go and we go, right, today we're going to talk. I mean, I suppose we are doing this in terms of our themes of our podcast episodes, but, you know, in general life, we all get together and we talk about something, and it's like a, you know, conversation that you can revisit, because things don't just go away like that once you've talked about them. It's about kind of chipping away at it, and that's what your friends are there to help you do. You know, things will always come, the kids will always piss you off, you know.
And I think that's the interesting one as well, because, you know, the kids' prime example is, you think you've got one thing nailed and then it moves on so quickly. There's something else, there's a new challenge, like they're having a new challenge, they're growing, and you're like, I just thought I dealt with that. Something new now. I thought we won. Like, we haven't. We're back to the start.
Oh, yeah. No, I think 3 lives and we're dead and we're starting again, aren't
but
we?
I want to encourage, and I think, you know, what I find, you know, having the space to be able to, like, talk and process and get things off my chest, I really want to give the kids that opportunity as well. You know, promoting that vulnerability to a degree, but we've spoken about this like boys in comparison to girls thing before, and, you know, I don't want the boys to feel like that's, you know, not a boy thing to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's a really good, healthy thing for parents to do, is to respect the fact that there isn't just boy things and there isn't just girl things. I generally feel there's a spectrum, and I totally understand that some kids will lean totally into one thing or totally into another, but there's a pure spectrum. We're all made up in unique ways, and enabling them to have space to talk about their feelings and for us to respect them.
Yeah, it's funny how, like, earlier we were saying, like, it's funny how we find it easy to open up, you know, over a glass of wine, coffee shop, any of those sort of things. For Freddie, for him, it's just when he goes to bed. I'm just about to leave the room, you know. Good night, love you. Mummy, can I tell you something? Can I ask you something?
The nighttime chat. Yeah.
Always, like, right then, or even on the monitor, Mummy. And I'm like, yes, Freddie, can I come and tell you something? And it's almost like it takes them that amount of time just to build it up to say it, but I don't want them to go to sleep.
Also, is it because the day is done and they're in bed, so they haven't got all the distractions of toys and being downstairs, and do you know what I mean? They're like, not focused, but like they're in that space where their mind can kind of bubble up. Things can bubble up to the surface because it's not being suppressed by other distractions, or, you know, they're not being fed like.
And if I can create that safe space for my kids, even in that environment,
I love that.
That will help, because I don't know, like, how much they do get that. And I know that at school they do, like, circle time, and it is promoted for them to, like, talk about how they're feeling and talk about other people, and it's brilliant. But sometimes I look at, you know, Freddie, obviously it's easier to look at him because he's slightly older, and I always sometimes feel like he's itching to say something. Itching, and he doesn't, and then he does.
I was going to say, how can you encourage that in all kinds of environments, not just at bedtime? People roll their eyes because the amount of stuff that I do with Sophia is ridiculous. But, I'm very, very much about Sophia's like choice and about her being able to open up and say something. So, for example, this week it's been very hot. I think she's just very overtired. She's been, last week was quite a difficult one with her. She was very frustrated, very low thresholds, very snappy. And she had a huge sort of blip on Thursday, we'll politely call it, where she was extremely nasty, very, very alter ego, nothing that we've ever seen before. She just completely I can't even describe it. She was screaming. She was nasty. She said a very lot of hurtful words. And I'm there, like, obviously we had to deal with that moment. And obviously you have to bring in some pretty drastic tactics to deal with it. But I've been talking to her about that incident on Thursday. It's now Tuesday. Every day. Because I want her to try and help process what happened. Yes, she had to apologize for some of the really, really offensive things she said to her grandparents and to her father. Father? Where am I from? Her dad. I'm just watching too much of the Waltons, obviously. But I wasn't in the situation that happened, so that's why I got away with it. But I was saying to her, like, why did you feel like that? What? And she doesn't want to talk about it a lot of the time, and I'll let her go. I won't force it. But if she does want to talk about it, we will. And I'll just say, how are you feeling now? Do you feel it was, were you frustrated? Was it, how were you feeling? Were you angry? Like, how can we deal with that next time? And we'll kind of keep going back to it until she's sort of like, yeah, okay, yeah, no, I know that I shouldn't have said those hurtful things, but I know I'm allowed to get angry. I know I'm allowed to get upset, but I know I shouldn't have been mean to Grandpa, and I knew I should have been mean to Daddy. Like it's like trying to find the kind of end game and trying to allow her that space to constantly, because the thing is, you can have one talk with them and they won't be in the headspace to deal with it. Because can you imagine if they've been told off for doing something? They're still reeling from what they've just done, so they're not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just revisiting it. So that's, you're saying about the nighttime convo. So I actually lie in bed with Sophia. I know I probably get shaded for doing that, but I love doing it because she's my last and she's not going to, be young for long. So we lie in bed and we chat about the day and we chat about things. And I always say to her, you can ask me anything. You can, whether that's a good thing to tell a 5-year-old, I don't know. But we have had some really interesting conversations about, why does this happen? And why did I feel like that? I don't like that, this happened in the playground, or why did this really hurt me? That's really unkind. And I was like, well, I said, you did, do this. So therefore, what do you think that made them feel like? Oh, well, yeah, okay. Well, that's why they were probably mean to me then. So again, it's like trying to help her.
I love that. But you're so aware of it. And when I listen to you, I think I need to do that. And I think that's probably like a really good sort of like point to end on. It's like we're talking about, what we do, but really like we need to try and instill all these best practices in our kids so they are, better people, better communicators, better processors of information. And I know I certainly don't handle a lot of things right, and letting stuff come out my mouth and having a offload vent mode, whatever you want to call it, like it might not be the best way, but I think, as I said already, I do think it's my therapy part of it. And I do wish, Rory in my circumstance, and I know you said Lawrence in yours, done it more, because I think then they would feel better about situations that they're going through rather than always trying to promote their best self.
I totally agree with you. And there's that phrase that I think I used earlier when we were chatting before this, that, kids will not treat themselves the way that they see you treating them. They will treat themselves the way that they see you treating you or your partner treating you. So again, it's like, even if you have to go down to like, writing down what you think is the right way you want your kids to be, look at yourself and how you're giving yourself those spaces. And that's where, you know, like you're saying about men having those spaces, how can we help them feel okay to create those spaces? And then, you know, like with Freddie and Max, like how can we make them feel okay to have the same conversations Sophia's having with me? Because it's easier for girls.
Yeah.
No, but absolutely, Freddie and Max deserve the same, you know. So how do we break the trend or the trauma that's come before that's made us all feel that we can't share?
Yeah, it's just insecurities, isn't it? It's how do we promote our kids to speak if we're insecure about sharing our own vulnerabilities?
Yeah, that's the thing. They'll see what we're doing and they'll follow it.
Oh, interesting. Now, on that note, I think I need a good sip of this one to process that.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Catch you later.
See you later.